some Torah here. Again, forgive me. We're continuing with a little bit of a lighter subject because just the emotions are too intense. I wasn't able to catch my breath, honestly, since Yom Tov. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll be able to be back on track. But I wanted to continue. It's a story that we're learning here. It's a lighter story. We're on page 393 in Chassidic Discourses. Just as I'm trying to catch my breath back on this topic, this idea of trying to understand the war in Israel, trying to get our minds around it. We know that when we study Torah, we are doing the most intense support for our brethren in the Holy Land, because Hashem and His Torah one. By us understanding and learning Torah, we are connecting and introducing God Almighty into our reality and sending Him into our front lines. Somebody asked me an interesting question yesterday, by the way. He wrote to me. He said to me, wrote to me an email. I have to quickly read this to you. I don't know if you saw my email yesterday, but I said, here's what you can do now. So somebody wrote to me, if God controls everything, then He sure messed up here. Agree or disagree? If God controls everything. So I wrote him back and I said, He does give us the gift of free choice. It's a double-edged sword. That allows us to do immense good, but also unthinkable evil. God intervenes when we invite Him in. I think that explains it, right? So we're dealing with crazy times and crazy people whom God allows the gift of freedom of choice. You can't blame God for this evil because He gave us free choice that allows us to do both amazing good and unthinkable evil, right? But right now what we need to do is to bring God to the table, to invite Him to intervene. We'd just like to dedicate this morning's Torah study to a group of soldiers that are related to David Weinberg, Diane Weinberg, and family, and they are the following. They're cousins. Yitzchak, Yaakov, Ben Miriam. They are apparently in battle. I'm not sure if they're going into Gaza or on the border of Gaza to their merit. Yitzchak, Yaakov, Ben Miriam, Netanel, Ben Miriam, Ariel, Ben Iris, Kehat, Ben Rina, Shai Shalom, Ben Mazal, Adam Gnon, Ben Rachel, Mayan, Ben Michal, and Amit, Ben Michal. Obviously, them and all of their fellow soldiers should be safe and have the divine protection of today's Torah study. All the Torah study that we do, they should have maximum protection, Iron Dome, bulletproof vests, and God's divine protection protecting them, so that as they walk, as we lay tefillin in 7 directions, they should flee from us. All of those terrorists should just disappear. Those cowards should disappear and should melt in their from the deterrence of these beautiful soldiers. So we're learning today on page 393. We're learning about the difference between serving God with your heart and serving God with your mind. Now, there's a powerful misconception out there that you have to be a scholar in order to be a good Jew. And this, until the Baal Shem Tov, was a well-known misconception. Until the Baal Shem Tov told the 1700s that there were actually divisions in the Jewish community. There was the scholars of the Jewish community, and then there were the illiterate or the cobblers or the grave diggers. They had their own little shuls because they wouldn't even mingle. If you want a Jew that was scholarly in Torah wisdom, you were like third class. And it's in this discourse, in this story, the Baal Shem Tov, with his 2 Chassidim that we're in the middle of talking about. One was Rabbi Avraham Belish Tzenitz. Where was he from, Marty? From the town of Belish Tzenitz, right? So he was Rabbi Avraham. He was not a scholar, but he was a very devoted Jew in his heart. And then there was Rabbi Nosson Levin Thendler, who was a linen merchant, who was a scholar, but he wasn't exactly, that it would never go above and beyond when it came to any assistance to others, when it came to devotion to serving God. It was all in the head, right? So let's take a look at how the Baal Shem Tov approached him. It was the custom of the Baal Shem Tov to show great affection to such disciples, saying Torah exclusively for them according to their level of comprehension. The Baal Shem Tov scholarly followers, although totally devoted to him and not questioning God forbid his action, were upset by these marked displays of affection. People were upset. Like, here you are, you had a giant in Torah who's a student of the Baal Shem Tov. He's like, why are you paying attention to that guy who's dressed like a plumber, talks like a plumber, and all his head is involved is in toilets? Like, why would you waste your effort dealing with simple people? They were upset. They too would review these teachings, and nevertheless, they too would review these teachings and immerse themselves therein. So, what was the story? It once happened that both Reb Nosson and Reb Avram, the emotional Jew and the intellectual Jew, were with the Baal Shem Tov on the same Shabbos. That Shabbos, the Baal Shem Tov said Torah on the verse in Isaiah, and when you spread forth your hands, I will conceal my eyes from you. Even if you increase your prayers, I shall not hearken, for your hands are filled with blood. Pretty intense verse. Again, and when you spread forth your hands, I will conceal my eyes from you. Even if you increase your prayers, I shall not hearken, for your hands are filled with blood. Now, it's difficult to understand what that verse is even talking about. Let's see how the Baal Shem Tov interpreted it, especially in light of the fact that his audience included both the scholarly Jew as well as the emotional Jew. The Baal Shem Tov said, although the labor, by the way, for us, we know about the four species, the lulav and the etrog. We know the lulav is the Torah scholar. We know the myrtle represents the Jew that has good deeds, but no taste, right? Which is no Torah study. And we've spoken many times about the importance of binding them together. And if you're missing one, you're incomplete. But these are the days of the Baal Shem Tov when it was still emerging wisdom. And also today in our own self-perception, do you view yourself as a third-rate Jew? Second-class stowage? Or do you view yourself as a good Jew? It's important to have a healthy sense of self-esteem. Let's see what happened. The Baal Shem Tov said, although the labor of mind and heart, Torah study and prayer is most important in spiritual service. After having accomplished this, one cannot rest assured that one's emotional traits and conduct in worldly matters are in order. Don't assume that your emotions are going to be in order just because you've served God with your head. It remains possible for your hands to be filled with blood. So that even when a generous donation is given to the pauper, empathy for that pauper person's plight may be lacking. This lack is considered a spilling of blood. So again, this is how I interpreted the verse. The Baal Shem Tov continued. This is what the verse means by saying, and when you spread forth your hands, which means when you give generously, when you give a donation. That is, even if you spread forth your hands and give unstintingly, you're an intellectual Jew. You're still doing a mitzvah. You gave tzedakah. No, he gave tzedakah. What do you want from him, right? I shall conceal my eyes from you, for it is not true service. Why? Because true service of the heart must include complete sympathy for his fellow's predicament. This is a pretty intense challenge. Normally we say the deed is done. What matters is the deed. Here the Baal Shem Tov is pretty, by quoting this verse from Isaiah, for your hands are filled with blood. That's intense. He's saying that if you cannot reach a state of empathizing with your fellow Jews' plight, even after or during helping them, your hands are still filled with blood. Not everybody's capable of empathy.
What about fake it till you make it?
So that, my friend, is a beautiful point.
What was that? Fake it till you make it.
So Jonathan's asking,
We've talked about that.
that's exactly the point. So Jonathan, what you're saying is, in my opinion, this is how I'm going to answer your question, a very personal answer. I believe that whilst these teachings are from the Baal Shem Tov, the previous Rebbe, right? We have a picture of him here, right? Our Rebbe of our generation understood intimately the needs of our generation. Let me give you a few examples. So today, there's a war in Israel. What is the timeless Jewish approach to such crisis? Fasting, sadness, sackcloth, prayer. That's what would normally happen. But what the Rebbe declared after the Yom Kippur War, he said Yom Kippur is a very similar situation to what's happening right now. He said, since it's still the days of Tishrei, which is the first month of this month of all the Jewish holidays, and since by Jewish law we don't say prayers of supplication, we don't say tachnon, it's a sign that this is a month of joy. And since this is a month of joy, it means that we have to fight for Israel spiritually, not through sadness, but through joy. It's very difficult. But this is what the Rebbe was saying. The Rebbe understood that our generation, if you're going to put this generation, the spiritually low generation, into a state of sadness, that you're on the risk of never coming out of it. Our generation is so far removed from Sinai. We are the lowest generation of all of world history in terms of our distance from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rachel, Leah, from Moses, Mount Sinai. We are the most removed, the most distant. Think about it, right? Think about it for just a quick moment. Atheists might not want to respect their elders. Why? Because their elders are closer to monkeys and apes than they are. But observant Jews, believers, will say, You have to respect your elders because they're closer to Moses
Than you are.
than you are. You see the difference, right? You see the difference, right? So what happens here is that our generation is so spiritually challenged after the Holocaust and the wars and the collective persecution of 2,000 years of this exile. It's like too much. After that, if you're going to put a Jew today in a state of sadness and depression, he might just say, you know what, I can't handle this anymore, and might never emerge. And that's what the Rebbe said. Our approach has got to be simcha, it's got to be joy. And that was my message here in Simchas Torah. When people walked into our shul in Simchas Torah and said, Rabbi, I'm upset that you haven't canceled the Simchas Torah celebrations because of the war in Israel, I said, Adrabah, au contraire. Is that how you said it? Au contraire. Right? On the contrary, we have to be joyous because Israel doesn't need our tears and sadness. Israel needs our joy and our confidence and our trust in God. That's what's going to send them the blessings of victory. In the same vein, Jonathan, I believe that our Rebbe customized a spiritual service for our generation. Yes, this is important for us to learn about empathy. But on a practical level, you're 100% correct. Fake it till you make it. See, the way I understand the Rebbe's teachings to us, and we've learned this in a discourse called Garments of the Soul, which I know Daniel the trucker has reviewed at least 3 times. I know he told me, right? What the Rebbe taught us there was you can't change your feelings, but you can change your garments, your thoughts, speech, and action, your soul garments. And by changing your garments, your what you think about, what you say, and what you do on a practical level, even though the inside is not, what happens is that by faking it, that you eventually make it. So that is my interpretation, Jonathan, is a novel application, a very creative one by our Rebbe, the Rebbe of our generation, who understood the intimate needs and sensitivities and vulnerabilities of our generation. But here you're talking about a Baal Shem Tov who's dealing with spiritual giants. Even the previous Rebbe was dealing with spiritual giants. We, after the Holocaust, we're down and out. We're barely holding on to dear life here. You got Jews over here that haven't laid tefillin in 75 years. You know what that means? Since 1945, they haven't laid tefillin. I mean, this is the people that are laying tefillin today and yesterday with me here in the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens, because that's how wounded they are from the Holocaust. It's that intense, right? Our generation has seen potentially more suffering than previous generations, potentially. Either way, I hope that answers your question, right? Fine. So in conclusion, the Baal Shem Tov said, even if you increase your prayers, your service of intellect, it is still not considered proper service, since true empathy is lacking. And this lacking empathy is called the spilling of blood. And that's what Isaiah is talking about. This is the meaning of your hands are filled with blood. Your hands, i.e., even your good emotive traits, hands is a reference to emotions, for emotions lead to action, are filled with blood. Now, both Reb Nosson, the emotional Jew, the emotive one, and Reb Avram, the intellectual Jew, heard this discourse. Reb Nosson, being a scholar, he understood it according to his level. And he immersed himself in contemplating the differences between the service of the mind and the service of the heart. So he meditated upon the idea of empathy. Meditated, right? Rabbi Avram grasped what he could with his level of understanding. Only those words that applied to practical acts of service. For him, he couldn't process the depth of the intellectual components, but he heard empathy. He was like, oh, you got to feel the pain of another person. So he felt the pain of the other person. Rabbi Avram finally resolved to work on the purification of his emotional traits. For the words, your hands are filled with blood, did not allow him any peace. He realized Isaiah is telling him his hands are filled with blood. He couldn't relax. Upon returning home, he began to work on himself, and as time passed, he reached new heights in service. So the Baal Shem Tov inspired him to rise ever higher, right? While sitting at the Seder table with his disciples, the Baal Shem Tov was extremely joyful. He spoke of the great pleasure that God derives from the service of the simple folk, and how their service surpasses even that of Torah scholars. Can you imagine how dramatic a revolution those few words were? The Baal Shem Tov is sitting around his Seder table, joyful, and he's describing the great pleasure that God derives from the simple folk, the basic illiterate Jew, the guy that can't even read barely. Right. I want you to realize that you're talking about a guy who might not be in yeshiva all day long, right? He's on the road. He's working. He's a businessman. He's a FedEx delivery guy, right? But while he does his thing, he's Maybe he's saying Tehillim or something, right? Nothing too profound. This is more precious in the eyes of God, says the Baal Shem Tov, than the great Rabbi Jew. Think about that. This is a revolution. By the way, many of the opponents to Hasidism were upset by this. The opponents to the Hasidic movement, they were like, this is blasphemy. Like, this is absolutely unacceptable. Torah is everything. Without Torah, we're nothing. What do you mean serving God with your heart? Can't define that. He then told the students to close their eyes and place their hands on the shoulders of the people sitting on either side of them, like this, like they form a circle, right? Close their eyes, make a circle. The Baal Shem Tov did so also, and he began to sing a melody. So now he closes the circle. Whenever the Baal Shem Tov did this, what this did would raise them to spiritual heights of the Baal Shem Tov, where they were not able to see visions of the higher worlds, as they're about to do. Ready for a vision? Right? This is what's going to happen. In a vision, the students now, with their eyes closed, were elevated to the vision of the Baal Shem Tov. They were singing a melody, eyes closed, arm around in a circle. In a vision, the students saw these two Hasidim, Rabbi Avram Belishzenitzer. Remember, he was the emotive Jew. He was sitting in his he was sitting in his village with his wife and children in a small, dimly lit room. On their Seder table stood a few earthen vessels. They beheld Rabbi Avram and his family proceeding with the Seder joyfully and full of holiday spirit. Nothing. They then observed Rabbi Nosson Leventhandler in his home in Brod. Remember, he was the wealthy and he was a scholar. He and his family were in a large, brightly lit room at a table laden with only the best. But they were all puffy, angry, and dissatisfied with one another. This is the vision. After the Baal Shem Tov removed his holy hands from the shoulders of the disciples sitting next to him and stopped singing, he told the students to open their eyes. So he broke the circle, stopped singing, now open your eyes. He brought them back first, right? You don't want to leave them there. You'd have to break the circle first. Right? He explained that when they had seen what they had seen revealed the difference between one who works in himself and one who doesn't. Although a person may be unremarkable, by working on himself, he is able to perceive in all matters and in every detail the merit possessed by another. Yeah. He is therefore satisfied and happy at all times. Even when lacking food for his children on a holiday, he rejoices in the day. It's a difference in attitude. Think about this for a moment, guys. You know, Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, right? You're in paradise. What happens when God asks Adam why he ate from the tree? You know what he says? The woman you gave me. The woman you gave. You're in paradise, and what are you doing? You're complaining. On the flip side, you had Jews in Auschwitz who would get up in the morning and they would say, Moide ani lefonecha. I thank you, living in eternal God, for having restored my soul to me. Look at that. It's that attitude, right? You can be in paradise and complain. You could be in hell and be grateful, right? This is what the Baal Shem Tov is saying, that when you work on yourself to be able to find the good in another Jew, you're always happy. I'll give you a quick example. Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev, who was the Mechutin of the Alter Rebbe, he was also a Chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. He says, he saw a Jew who was, saying the Shema. Say the Shema, you cover your eyes, right? You're supposed to cover your eyes. Why'd you cover your eyes when you say the Shema? Concentration, right? So while he was saying the Shema, he was oiling the wheels of his wagon. Like what are you doing, right? Comes the Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev and he calls out and he says, Master of the universe, how amazing are your children. Even while he's oiling the wheels of his wagon, he says Shema. You see the approach? See what he did? He flipped it around. So you could say, look at this shmendrik who misbehaves when he's in the shul, when he's in the service. Or you could look at the other way around. You could say, look at this shmendrik. Where does he choose to hang out? He chooses to hang out in the house of Hashem. Right? There's two different ways to look at it. And I want to say to you right now that if you cannot find the good in a fellow Jew, shame on you. If you cannot see the light and the love in your fellow Jew, it means you haven't dug deep enough. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Doesn't mean you have to condone what they're doing. Their behavior could be wrong. But if you cannot empathize with what they're going through, it means that you're stone cold.
Isn't
what the Rabbi called, or what was termed, his positivity bias. That he sees the positive.
Yeah.
That to me is what this is. He sees the positive in the very things you just talked about.
You've always got to
And
find the
always
light.
look at You're right.
Always got to find the light. Absolutely. So let's wrap this up. This then is the meaning of better a dry crust of bread consumed in peace. This was a verse we brought in yesterday. The verse we brought this from Proverbs. Better dry crust of bread consumed in peace than a house full of delicacies and strife. This is the meaning of the two visions that they saw. However, if one pays insufficient attention to the development of good character and emotional traits, then even if he serves with his mind and heart, he's still considered a house full of strife. You can have all the delicacies in the world, the nicest table, mahogany, right? Best tablecloth, best delicacies. But if you cannot work on your emotional traits, then I prefer dry crust of bread consumed in peace than a house full of delicacies and strife, right? That explains now both the verse in Isaiah as well as the verse in Mishlei Proverbs. And people, however, get together at a festive occasion that celebrates the performance of a mitzvah, then surely upon any assemblage of 10 rests the divine presence. This is interesting footnote here, where he says, by the way, even if you're 10 shmendriks, if you're 10, then the divine presence will always dwell with you. That's very interesting. This is what the verse means when it says, those who love your Torah enjoy abundant peace and joy. We're going back to our opening verse yesterday. We said, those who love your Torah. Why is it love? We said, loving Torah. It should have said, those who study Torah, it should have said. No. Those who love your Torah with their hearts, that's the point. Enjoy abundant peace and joy, and there is no stumbling for them. Why is it that those who love Torah don't stumble? That was the second question, right? Those who are students of Torah may stumble at one time or another. If you're a student of Torah, what does that mean? You're serving God with your head. You may stumble, you could fall. But those who love Torah do not stumble at all. This is because one who loves Torah. Of course, observing appointed times for common Torah study as well means you don't neglect Torah. You just have an emotional component here as well. Is helped by God who blesses them. May there be peace within your walls, which refers to earning a living in peace and tranquility. Such people also merit serenity within your mansions, which refers to true harmony in one's family life. This is powerful blessings. The previous Rabbi is telling us here what this means is that if you are able to engage your heart in your service of God, which practically manifests in empathy, not just fake it until you make it, not just the action, but actually feeling it within. If you can reach that point, then number one, you won't stumble. What that means is financially, that means earning a living in peace and tranquility. And also serenity within your mansion, which means shalom bayit, peace in your relationships, peaceful relationships. So financial stability and wholesome, meaningful relationships. That's pretty good. Pretty good reward there for empathy. All families who keep kosher and observe the laws of family purity merit that their homes become palaces of pleasure. Wow. Kosher and laws of family purity. Their homes become palaces of pleasure. Such people have the most beautiful feelings of love for their fellow Jews. Now, this is interesting. I'm not sure why the previous Rebbe says that just because you keep kosher and observe the laws of family purity, you're going to have the most beautiful feelings of love for their fellow Jews. I'm not sure why he says that. This is very dear to God, and he grants to all brethren of Israel, to all Jewish sons and daughters, and their children, that they be written and sealed for good and blessed, you're materially and spiritually. Here's how I understand it, okay? That this was said during the war, World War, this discourse. And I think that the previous Rebbe, was trying to verbalize positive affirmations about fellow Jews. You should never speak badly about a fellow Jew because your words are powerful. He was trying to say, obviously Jews keep kosher and family purity. Obviously, those who do that also have empathy, most beautiful feelings of love for their fellow Jews. And therefore, obviously, they should be channeled to them all the blessings of being sealed for good and blessed here materially and spiritually. Bottom line is, folks, is that empathy is what we're learning about over here. Yes, it's important to serve God with your head, but it's actually even more important to serve God with your heart. What does this mean? You come to shul, you daven. You daven and shul, it could easily become a matter of routine. You've got to be able to find the way to be able to feel your davening as well. So it's not enough to just read the words. I mean, it's a good start. It's a very good start. But how can you come to a state of feeling? For this, you need to meditate before davening. For this, you need Chassidus. You need to think a little Tanya, think a little Chassidus before davening. So when you enter the davening, after a few minutes of meditation, you're actually feeling something. I was my daughter caught me the other day. I was preparing class, and I said to her, 1 second, I need to meditate. So I went like this, and I started meditating for 3 to 5 minutes. She's like, "Is that really a thing? Is that really a thing?" And when I finished, I said, "Look," I said, speaking is something we do, right? Actions is something that we do, right? Why shouldn't thinking be something that we actively do? Think. You got the lemon squeezer, right? Think. Take time to think. We live in we're so inundated with messaging. It's actually overwhelming. Phone calls, text messages, WhatsApp messages, emails.
It's insane.
It's insane. Give me a break. But when you think, you're actually able to conjure feelings. The mind controls the heart. So if you want to serve Hashem with your heart, if you want to feel another Jew, meditate upon their greatness. I know you might not like them. Might be a Jew that you don't like, but think about what you do like about them. Think about how they're your brother. Think about, it's a nice thing to do. Our heart bleeds for Jews that get killed in wars. Right? What about your neighbor next door? What happens if you meditated? What would happen if they were taken hostage? Just think about that for a moment. You disagree with everything about them, fine, got it. But how would you react if they were taken hostage? Right? You would feel a sense of empathy. Oh, meditate on that. Think about it. And now just why are they guilty that they weren't taken hostage? You can feel some empathy now too, right? And by doing that, we'll merit the most beautiful blessings. All right, folks, let's feel, I don't think it's hard for us to feel empathy for our soldiers in Gaza, for the hostages in Gaza. But just bear in mind that what we're learning today is not checking out of reality. We're not checking out of reality, because this is the message that I'm trying to pass all week long, is that we are soldiers in this war. Our battalion is a spiritual battalion. The thoughts, the confidence, the joy in your heart is what's going to send missiles over to Israel to support our soldiers, right? By you crying and being afraid and shouting at your television all day long is going to do absolutely nothing. Probably it's going to hurt the war effort. By you being confident and in a state of joy, confident in God's blessing and divine intervention, by you actively going out and doing more mitzvahs, by saying an extra chapter of Tehillim, reciting chapters of Psalms, speaking to your fellow Jews about it, strengthening them, right? There was a Jew here who met someone in Costco, and he was wearing yarmulke. The other person came over to him, and she said, "You're very brave to wear a yarmulke." So he said, "No, this is who we are. We're proud of who we are. We're strong. We're not weak. We're not afraid. God is on our side." And this woman was like, "Thank you." This is the messaging that our fellow Jews need to hear. Let's go out there, one heart and soul at a time. We're going to make a difference. Shikach. Amen. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.